Yo, how's it going, folks? It's me again, your boy Tabo, and this is another Three.js tutorial. So today I'm going to show you how I create this. I created this visualization over here. I posted it a while ago, but it was a simplified version of this. So and I just added this other animation here, this other spiral which is in the middle, but before it was mainly these two, but now it looks different. You can add different shapes, you can add rotation animation and scale animation. So yeah, so this is what we're going to be creating in this tutorial. So yeah, tune in. I hope you enjoy. So as usual, I've got my template set up here. So basically I've got a I'm importing Three.js. I'm importing an orbit control, which I'm going to be using. I've got my renderer. I've set up the size to the window width and height size. Pixel ratio set up to the Windows pixel ratio. So this is a setup that you should know by now. You know, this is not a newbie tutorial. If you're new to Three.js, please check out my beginner tutorial, and then you can come back or understand what this is doing. Okay. So I've got my camera scene, set my background color to this color over here. You can set it to whatever color you want. Point light, I've already got that, and I already added it to the scene, and I've got my camera set up here, so it's pointing to the scene, so it will be centered. I've moved it up 20 units and 50 units in the Z axis, and I'm using the orbit control, so everything is set up. I can pan, rotate in my scene. I've got a renderer function here which is already running for my animations. I'm using request animation frame, so I can render it out, so I can request it every 60 frames per second. Okay, so now that we've got that going, so now we're gonna start with the interesting stuff. Okay, the first thing that we're gonna do is we're going to create an array. Now this array is going to have the different geometries in it. So I'm going to add it here. So we're going to call it GOR. So all it is just an array with different geometries in it. And then secondly, we're going to create a function . Okay, so this function is called mesh array. Now mesh array takes shape, range multiplier, and wireframe basically is a boolean. It takes a boolean, and this boolean will say whether this is true or not. Okay, and what that means is the wireframe. We're going to control the wireframe using this value over here. And the rest of this stuff I can just get rid of because we're not gonna really need any of this. Okay, so there we go. So inside the mesh array, I've got a variable called increment. It's math pi times 2 divided by 30. And we've got a range, which is math pi times range multiplier over here. This is what we're gonna multiply it with. Okay, this is just me consoling just to log in just to check some stuff. And then we've got our mesh array over here. So this is the mesh R, and inside of here this is what we're going to add the meshes. Okay, and then we create a for loop which is going to use the range, which is this value over here, and then it's going to increment it by this over here. So we create a shape, a geometry shape. We're going to create a material mesh, and then we're going to add that into our mesh array and then add that to the scene. Okay, and then afterwards, then we're going to return the mesh array. So when you call this function, it's going to return the mesh array with the amount of geometry which are determined by our range multiplier. Okay, so now that that is done, so now we can already create an array. So we're going to create one array called mesh R, and what we're going to do with it is we're going to create a for loop, right? And this for loop is going to run in the render function, and this is where we're gonna then create the animation and the spiral. So what these values are, I took GOR and then I used math seal, and then it basically gives you a random number which is determined by the length of the actual array itself. So any index number that you're given by at randomly, this is what your geometry is going to be. Okay, so now that we've got that running, I can already create the for loop, which is going to be running inside of the renderer function. And before I do that, I'm going to create a time variable. So I'll say let t equal to 0. So this is going to be my time variable, and so I'll say t plus equals 0.005. Okay. So now that that's set up, one other thing that I also want to do is I'm going to add this point light, and this is going to be animated using math sign. So this is just to make everything that we do look nice. So the setup that I showed you, it's using this. So yeah, I'm just adding it just so that we get that going. But that's not so important in terms of, you know, the main focus is on the actual animation. But yeah, this is something that's mainly for aesthetics. So you can play around with it as much as you want. So this is our for loop over here, and so this is where all the magic happens. So inside the for loop, then we're basically using the mesh array length, and so we're looping through the different values and then animating them as we go. Okay, so these are the values that I'm using to animate the X position, Y, and Z. As you can see, the Y is different because it is moving basically. This is just circling, so this is just to help create the circular movement, but the Y position is so that it is moving up and down. As you saw in the animation, it keeps on growing, so it's expanding up and down in different directions. So this is the first spiral that we've got set up. So let's see what that looks like. So it should already be running. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run the server. Well, I'm already kind of running the server. Yes, embarrassingly enough, I'm creating this tutorial for the second time because the first time I did it, I didn't realize that my microphone was off. So then I had a video with no vocals on it. So that was embarrassing. Okay, anyway, let's get back to the tutorial. So I'm running this on port 8080. Okay, so I'm just gonna refresh. So yeah, this is what our initial setup looks like. As you can see, we've got spheres there. If I refresh, then I've got what I think it's tetrahedron, you know, so this is creating random shapes every time you refresh, as you can see. So that is looking good. So what we need then is to create the second spiral, and then we're going to do that same way as we created this one. Okay, so since I've got all of this code already set up, I'm just going to be copying and pasting just to save you time so that I don't have to take an hour creating this tutorial. So same setup, it's not different at all. The only thing that's going to be different will be visible in the next for loop that we're going to create. Okay, so this for loop will just have some differences in it, but it's not all that much. It's pretty much the same thing, just with a bit of tweaking here and there. Okay, so we've got that for loop. So what the difference between these for loops is, this one has got a minus on its time, so it is actually transitioning upwards. And then this one has a negative sign on time and also this value over here. So this is what's going to make the next spiral upside down. Okay, so when we come here and then you see, so now this is the one that we just added, and what I want to display is what's actually happening, because you can't actually see it stretch out, but it is actually stretching out The only way to see it is if I speed this up. So I'll just do that, and then you will see what I mean by that. So this is what's actually happening. As you can see, it's like closing in on itself. So this is the effect that you're getting. So this is going to be happening slowly in time. Now I just speeded it up so that you can see what's actually happening, but this is the actual effect that you're getting. And now it's going to stretch out in the opposite direction. Okay, so this is what's happening right now. Okay, so now that that is okay, we're gonna then create the third array. Now this one is not gonna have any animation, or it's not gonna transition in the y-axis, so we're just gonna let it rotate and remain still, but it's just gonna be a circular. Mid part. Okay, so we've got our third array, and then we're gonna run its for loop, which has slightly different values as well. So let's check that out. Okay, so there we go. As you can see, I just commented this out, but you can completely delete it because you don't really need it. And yeah, also sorry, I just ran you through all of this, but this is the rotation animation, but this is simple stuff. It's just a rotation with math sign using time. So I just timed it by 3 so that it's a bit faster. And scale also is using a similar kind of setup, but yeah, that's nothing special. If you're already familiar with the math function, then this is just a simple animation using these math functions. Okay, so this is the setup for this one with no animation in the y-axis, and we've also got similar rotation and scale animation. So the difference here is also this value over here. Okay, as you can see, this one is being divided by -20, and here I'm dividing it by -5. The difference is that the lower the value, then the bigger the circle. Okay, first of all, let's just check what that looks like. Okay, as you can see, so this is okay, but now it's still running according to the sped up time. So let's go back to the original timing. Okay, so this is what's happening. You see, this is a nice size. I like the size personally, but you can make it into whatever you like. If I make it, let's say, I've never tried like -2, it should be bigger. See, so now it's bigger, and the scale animation is also there, but it's just happening a lot slower, so it takes time for you to actually notice it. So what I'm gonna do is then I'll make it into 20 just to show you also what's gonna happen if I bring the values up. You see, so now that it's 20, it's a bit cramped up. Let's even make it more extreme. Let's try something like 50. Let's see what happens. Say 50. You see, so the more you crank up the value, then it looks cramped up like that. Okay, so let's go back to the original one, which was 5. So yeah, so pretty much that's what all of that does, and a few things that I want to show you just so that you can understand what each aspect of it does. Like for instance here, the range multiplier, right? This affects the way that this thing over here is set up. Now at this moment I used, which let me check out the values. I used 30, right? If I use 90, then you will see it's gonna stretch out the spiral. Okay, so pay attention to the size of this thing. Now that I refresh it, okay, I think I know what's happening here. Yes, over here we have a problem. It's supposed to be mesh rotation 3. Okay, so now as you can see, this is now really long. Okay, and that is all because of this value over here. This over here, this is what's influencing it. So you can stretch it however, oh sorry, let me just do it manually. So let's go back to 30 because I like that value, so I'll just stick to that one. Let's go back. So yeah, so pretty much this is our setup. And yeah, so you can play around with the values, see what happens, you know, see if you can get any interesting effects. I mean, you can really just kind of go crazy with this. And the best way I'd say to do this is to use instance buffer geometry. Yeah, I hope I'm saying it right. Yeah, instance buffer geometry, because it's a lot cheaper that way, meaning that it doesn't use up a lot of memory. So yeah, it's basically instanced meshes that you'll be using across for this animation, because yeah, you don't really need to be creating new geometry for this all the time, you know, because it's somewhat similar. So yeah, you can do it this way, but I will create another tutorial actually on using instance buffer geometry. So for now, I think this is it. Yeah, so I hope I didn't really miss out on anything. But yeah, with all that said and done, please like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell button to get notifications when I put out a tutorial or any kind of video content. So yeah, with all that said, love and peace. I'm out.